Right, next up, I'm excited to introduce John Ridd and William Tinney from Greenpixie. They're the CEO and CTO, respectively. So please welcome to the stage, John and William.
Thanks, James. Hello, everyone. So I'm Will, this is John, and we're the CEO and CTO of Greenpixie. That one. So thanks very much to GCV and Set Squared for inviting us here today on what is actually a very pivotal moment for our business, and we're really keen to share more about that with you. But before we do, we want to take you through our journey of discovery, and I'm going to pass you over to John to start us off with that.
The climate crisis is the biggest business opportunity of the next 20 years. Let's dig into that. Through mounting public pressure, there's never been a bigger time to take action against the climate crisis. And this has caused shareholder pressure to be at an all-time high, as well as tightening regulation for these companies. Thousands of companies have made net zero pledges to cater to this massive net zero demand, promising to measure carbon emissions and reduce them. So far, this opportunity has fallen upon environmentalists to cater to this huge net zero demand and to create softwares to cater to the demand. As a tech company entering the sustainability space, we fast found that the net zero movement had a problem. There is 4% of emissions that is not currently being reported on, and that is set to rise to 10% of global emissions over the next 10 years. I'm wondering if anyone has any idea what this emission could be. Well, until 1 year ago, we didn't know either. The answer is digital emissions, which produce 1.4 billion tons of CO2 every single year. And to put that into context, that is more than the aviation industry, and growing.
So what makes up this digital carbon? Well, from this presentation to apps like Twitter or Salesforce, it all ends up being powered by carbon-intensive electricity used by data centers, cables, exchanges, and more. Loading a web page or downloading a file may seem to work like magic, but in reality, there is a vast physical infrastructure which contains endless undersea cables and racks of servers, and it's all required to power this digital work that we've become so accustomed to. Already, countries like Singapore and Ireland are either debating or have already started enforcing bans on data center construction because of their colossal energy use. And an article from the BBC just last week highlighted that last year, 14% of Ireland's grid was taken up by data center use. So this is a problem for today. As we all know, digital use is growing exponentially, driving growth across industries. But in a world with metaverses and self-driving cars on the horizon, this is only set to increase, and this trend is destined to go to many times the levels of today. So over the next decade, there is a real possibility that this will grow to 10% of the global share of emissions. So what can we do about it? Well, each of these different services that we've seen up here all present a distinct and complex challenge in order to understand and reduce their impact. So our first major product looks at just one of these, and potentially the biggest operator, cloud operations and cloud computing. It may sound light and fluffy, but the cloud is actually a vast, or one of the biggest drains on the hard infrastructure that makes up the digital world. You may think of storing family photos when you think of the cloud, but of course it's big businesses storing millions of files and countless hours of computation taking place every single day. We've seen a unique opportunity to build a software product to measure and reduce the environmental impact of the cloud. So this is where our flagship product comes in, Cloud Net Zero. Using the power of software to integrate directly with the cloud, we can measure and reduce digital carbon at scale. Cloud Net Zero will allow companies to reach their true net zero by giving them the power to accurately measure the hidden emissions that come from their cloud usage, totally automated like magic. Combining these measurements with a suite of analysis tools and artificial intelligence, we can then facilitate significant lossless reductions for companies' cloud computing. Also, by connecting into, or an example of this is by connecting into things like electricity map, which shows the carbon intensity of the electricity around the world real time at any one time. So a solution that we could gather from this is, for instance, showing companies where to place their servers in terms of where the renewable energy is in the grid in order to get the most effective usage for the least environmental impact. This is just one of the ways that we're able to enable businesses to have significant reductions in their emissions.
So what is the business opportunity for Cloud Net Zero? And covering this 4% black hole in emissions. Well, currently there's only really generic sustainability software on the market which tries to cater to every single business need you can imagine. We strongly believe that there should be a product for the digital world that can represent tech companies' sophisticated needs when it comes to their digital emissions. But it is not just tech companies, forward-thinking tech companies, that are taking, that will use net zero to be able to improve their digital emissions. In January 2023, the Sustainability Financial Disclosure Regulation will come into practice, which will cause large companies to have to report on their scope 3 emissions. And this is exactly where digital emissions has been hiding. So there are 3 investment reasons why Cloud Net Zero is a great investment opportunity. Firstly, it is a 100% automated product that can solve a sustainability issue. This is due to the inherent digital nature of digital emissions, meaning a software can actually measure and reduce the environmental issue at scale. This is not possible in any other sustainability space. Secondly, we're differentiated. We're not trying to serve every single company. We're just trying to serve tech companies' complex digital operations. And as a tech company ourselves, we feel we understand their problems and we speak their language. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, we can prove that environmental action has been taken with data, which will pave the way to the anti-greenwashing future that is ahead of us. But we're not doing this alone. We're lucky enough to have tech leaders from Google, Figma, and Shopify supporting us on our advisory board who are helping us create this scalable product. And after we brought to their attention that the tech industry has this shadow problem that is plaguing the industry. And we're also lucky enough to have experts in regulation and sustainability from CDP, FINRA, and MSCI, who have allowed us to position our software to hit the biggest possible market due to aligning with regulation and the latest sustainability frameworks.
So how do we reach these markets that John was talking about? Well, we like to say, if you can't measure it, you can't reduce it. So this is why the first version of Cloud Net Zero is going to look at accurately measuring the real-time emissions of the real-time hidden emissions that come from companies' cloud usage. This is just the first step and the first taste of what the full platform will offer before we develop it into next year. And this QR code will actually take you to our pitch deck where you can find out more information about us and get some more numbers. But already over 100 companies have signed up to be a part of our beta release, which is being released in the next few days. And if anyone hasn't caught this, feel free to come and see us after the talk. But this is actually bringing us to the end of our presentation. I just want to tell you where we are at the moment as a company. So we raised a pre-seed round earlier this year, and we're going to be raising a seed round later this year, probably end of Q3. And finally, I'd like to say that the reason that we at Greenpixie are so excited about Cloud Net Zero is because it provides a very rare business opportunity to have the productivity and investment returns of a scalable software with an equally scalable, positive impact on the planet, so that we can bring sustainability to the digital world. Thank you.
Wonderful, that was really exciting. Thanks, John. Thanks, Will. Quick questions from folks. We've got some microphone up. We've got one to the right over there. Jose, if you want to say your name as well, or Julio, I think I'm struggling to see the lights.
Hi. Sorry, thanks. Hi. Great presentation and great insight. I think you've hit on something. A bit of background about myself. I've worked in UK government within digital data and technology, so I'm aware of, obviously, the usage of cloud in government, not just here in the UK, but overseas as well, and that obviously is growing as digital services grow and demand grows, so you've hit on something there. Are you just focusing on the commercial sector, not just on external public sector growth as well?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at the public sector as well. Really, this, our first tool allows pretty much any company to go in and test their cloud computing if they're using one of the major cloud providers. And this is something that we're looking to do with our seed round, is then broaden the scope of our product in order to serve as many cloud services as possible. But if you're in the public sector, you certainly can use the MVP. It's not necessarily, although we're targeting the private sector as our initial market, it's not completely constrained to that.
That's great. Does that help, Julio?
Yeah, I've got a question, but I'll throw them to you later. There's a lot of government spend on cloud, about £1 billion a year. There's policies for the contract good, but I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting follow-up.
Definitely, yeah.
If you want to look at. Certainly at the seed stage, you've got room to pivot on that side. Question back on the left-hand side as I'm facing it. It's just coming, the microphone's coming. Do say your name as well and where you're coming from as well.
Hi, good morning. Jasdeep Sawhney from Woven Planet Holdings and Woven Capital. Thanks for the pitch. It's very interesting, and I think, as the gentleman there said, you've hit on something amazing. My question is, so we build automotive software. So we're building software for Toyota vehicles, operating system for the next generation of Toyota vehicles, and currently our software design is built to spec. So whatever specifications we want from the platform, and also built to cost. The way we use cloud and edge, the orchestration between cloud and edge is really depends. It focuses a lot on cost, because cloud is expensive. The amount of data the car generates and sends to the cloud can mean a big difference between what kind of applications you can build for the car. What we don't do is build for sustainability. So we don't build software keeping in mind the CO2 emissions that our cloud usage will generate. Would you guys be open to working with platform developers from the get-go so that we can start building our platform to sustainability, and including cost, of course, which is what we're doing, but add a new dimension, which is build to sustainability. So instead of going into pre-existing software and then figuring out what, measuring their CO2 emissions, working together with platform creators and designing software from the ground up to sustainability.
Yeah, and I think, so the thing that we're struggling with now is opportunity cost with the resources we have. And what we want, ultimately, Greenpixie to be able to do is to cover all digital emissions. So actually, the point that you hit on about in the automotive industry, there's so much data associated with that, of course, that's going to be a really, really big emitter, and companies are going to be able to make real changes with this. So I think it's really important that we do go into those areas. It's a question of timing, really. And if we can build up a big enough set of resource in order to explore these different areas, then our core technology can definitely serve all of these different sectors. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, that's super useful. Thanks very much. It's good to hear from Toyota on that side of things. So, any other questions? Otherwise, I had one I was going to ask. Obviously, when I looked at the presentation, it talked about identifying the emissions and then being able almost to be able to find places that can provide that sort of electricity or centres for data centres. But obviously, there's a massive time lag being able to identify something and then being able to go there and use it. So, is this something that you kind of think, well, between sort of identification and implementation is 12 months, 18 months, or, and then what happens if things change in the interim?
So it's actually much quicker than you'd think, because the way that cloud computing operates, particularly if you're using major cloud providers with server locations across the world, although it's not necessarily a single click of a button, you can manipulate where your servers lie by simply telling one of the big cloud providers where to put them. So it's not like you have to move your entire data center over there. Companies are already using Amazon's data centers and just choosing the location on the world which suits them best. So you can build smart systems within any of these frameworks in order to actually divert, say, your server computation to wherever the energy is greenest at any one time, which is actually one of the key ways that's not reducing data that we think we're going to be able to make significant reductions. And
yeah, this represents why we think this is such a big opportunity. We really feel that these reduction suggestions are automatable because of the data trail that digital emissions leave. So that is, we think we can move quicker than any other vertical when it comes to sustainability action, and that's what we aspire to.
We're techies and we like sustainability.
Well, I thought that was the case. I was trying to interested to see how much the physical piece had to catch up with the click of the button bit. So, but that's really inspired. So please join with me in thanking Will and John.